Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. One chilly evening, as the clock neared closing time at the office, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. Glancing down, I saw it was from Lucy, my wife. Her words flickered on the screen, "I miss you, my love. I can't wait to see you again." A smile almost broke on my face, tempered only by the memory of our morning conversation where I'd mentioned working late. Intrigued and warmed by her words, I decided to surprise her by coming home early. The city lights blurred past as I drove, fueled by a mix of anticipation and love. The night was quiet, the roads mercifully clear. Turning into our street, the familiar glow of our home's windows promised a serene ending to the hectic day. As I parked the car, a flicker of movement caught my eye through the partially open curtains of our living room. My pulse quickened, perhaps Lucy had planned a surprise. I approached the house, key sliding silently into the lock, anticipation building with each heartbeat. The scene that greeted me as I stepped inside shattered the warm illusions of my return. The living room was disheveled, clothes strewn without care. And there, at the heart of this chaos, was Lucy, scantily clad and perched far too close on the lap of a man I'd never seen before. They were laughing, caught up in a moment so intimate it was like a physical blow. Frozen, I watched as Lucy's eyes met mine, her expression morphing swiftly from shock to fear. "David," she gasped, scrambling to her feet. The man stood too, an awkward attempt at composure playing across his face. "Who is he, Lucy?" My voice was calm, eerily so, as cold dread replaced the warmth that had filled me moments before. "It's not what it looks like, David. Please, let me explain," Lucy pleaded, her voice trembling, reaching for me. I stepped back, holding up my hand to stop her. "Save it. I don't need any explanations." Turning to the man, who still hadn't spoken, I said, "I think you should leave." He nodded, muttering an apology before quickly slipping out, leaving a heavy silence behind. Lucy started to speak, tears streaming down her face, but I was already moving past her, my mind racing. The pain of betrayal was acute, a searing brand on all we had built together. Yet beneath that, a cold resolve began to form. I would not let this pass. Lucy had made her choice, and I would make mine. "I can't do this right now, Lucy. We'll talk tomorrow." My words were clipped, final. I didn't wait for her response, I didn't need to hear her excuses or her apologies. Not then. That night, alone in the guest room, the walls of our home seemed to close in around me. The life I thought I knew, the woman I thought I loved, both were illusions. As I lay there, the shock began to ebb, replaced by a simmering anger that outlined a clear, cold thought: revenge. Lucy had broken the sacred trust between us, and for that, she would have to pay. I would ensure she lost as much as I had, or perhaps even more. Sleep was elusive as plans and possibilities whirled through my mind. The dawn light crept in, gray and unwelcome, as I finally made a decision. Our paths would diverge, irreparably broken, and I would be the architect of that severance. It was only fair, it was only just. The stage was set, the lines drawn, and the curtain was about to rise on a drama that neither Lucy nor I could have ever anticipated. Morning light spilled indifferently across the kitchen where I sat, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold in front of me. I heard Lucy moving upstairs, the soft thuds of her tentative footsteps betraying her uncertainty. Today, there would be no escaping the consequences of her actions. Today, the confrontation was inevitable. She appeared in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed and wary. "David, can we talk?" Her voice was a whisper, almost lost in the space between us. I nodded, gesturing to the chair across from me. "Sit down, Lucy." She complied, pulling the chair out slowly and seating herself with a careful, almost calculated composure. I could tell she was bracing herself, preparing to weave a tale of justification. "David, I'm so sorry you had to see that last night," she began, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. Mark, he's just a friend from work, and things got out of hand. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. My voice was steady, though inside, anger simmered. Lucy, you were on his lap, laughing, touching. How can that mean nothing? I know how it looked, but it was just a moment of foolishness. It won't happen again. I love you, David. Her words spilled out in a rush, the desperation evident in her eyes. Love? I scoffed, feeling the sharp sting of the word. What do you know of love, Lucy? You've broken everything we built together. Standing abruptly, I towered over the table, my resolve hardening. You want to make things right? Then you'll agree to my terms. Her eyes widened. Your terms? Yes. We're going to sell the house. You're going to move out. I want a divorce, Lucy. The words were like stones, heavy and final. She gasped, tears welling up again. David, please, isn't there another way? Can't we go to counseling? Try to work through this. I shook my head. It's too late for that. You made your choice last night. But I love you, she protested, her voice breaking. That's not love, Lucy. And now you need to deal with the consequences. I pulled out my phone, dialing quickly. I'm calling my lawyer. We need to get the paperwork started. As I spoke to the lawyer, arranging for a meeting later that day, Lucy sat silently, her whole body seeming to shrink in defeat. When I hung up, she was staring at the floor, her face pale. This is happening, Lucy. It's best you accept it, I said, my tone final. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'll move out this weekend. I'll stay with my sister until I find a place. Good, I replied, my heart a mix of relief and relentless ache. It's better this way. For both of us. As she stood and walked slowly towards the stairs, each step seemed laden with the weight of our crumbling marriage. I watched her go, knowing that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But it was a path I had to take, for my own sanity and dignity. Lucy had broken the most sacred trust, and for that, there was no easy forgiveness. The room felt colder as the door closed behind her. Alone, I contemplated the ruins of our relationship, knowing that the coming days would demand more from me than I had ever imagined. My revenge had begun, not out of malice but necessity. I would rebuild, perhaps not today or tomorrow, but eventually. Lucy's betrayal would not define me. The weekend arrived with a heavy, somber air as I watched Lucy pack her belongings into boxes. The finality of each item she placed felt like another brick in the wall separating our lives. Despite the turmoil inside me, I found a grim satisfaction in overseeing the dismantling of our shared existence. Do you need help with anything? My voice was flat, devoid of the warmth it once carried for her. No, I've got it, Lucy replied, not looking up from the box she was filling with kitchen utensils. Her hands trembled slightly, a sign of the stress she was under, no doubt. As she worked, I leaned against the doorway, my mind racing through the next steps. This was just the beginning. Lucy's infidelity had shattered something fundamental between us, and while the divorce was a punishment, it didn't feel like enough. Not yet. After a long silence, punctuated only by the scraping of cardboard on tile, Lucy spoke up. David, we need to discuss how we'll handle the finances during the divorce proceedings. I straightened, my lips tightening. I've already made it clear to my lawyer that I want a clean and quick settlement. You'll get what's fair, but don't expect any generosity. Lucy paused, her expression hardening. Fair? After everything, you still think you can dictate terms completely? Yes, Lucy. After everything, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I crossed my arms, a barrier against the rising anger. You broke our vows. You deal with the consequences. She sighed, a sound of resignation. I suppose there's no point in arguing. You've made up your mind. That's right. I have. The rest of the packing went silently, with only the occasional clink of dishes or rustle of paper to fill the air. When the last box was sealed, Lucy stood in the middle of what used to be our living room, now stripped bare of all signs of her presence. "I'll come back for the rest later," she said, avoiding my gaze. "I guess this is goodbye, then." "Guess so," I replied, feeling a hollow victory. As she walked out, the weight of the empty house pressed down on me. Now alone, I could start putting my life back together, but at what cost? Over the next few days, I threw myself into work and meetings with my lawyer. I ensured the divorce papers were as stringent as possible, leaving no room for Lucy to contest much. It was harsh, perhaps cruel, but each clause was a balm to my wounded pride. One evening, as I reviewed the settlement proposal, my phone rang. It was Mark, the man from that night. His name flashing on the screen reignited a flicker of my initial rage. "David, I think we should talk." Mark's voice was cautious, wary of my reaction. "Why would I talk to you?" My tone was icy, each word sharpened by betrayal. "Because I think there's more to this situation than you know. And I owe you an explanation, at least." Curiosity piqued, I agreed to meet him at a nearby cafe the following day. As I set the phone down, a part of me wondered if this was a mistake. But another part, the part still craving answers and perhaps deeper retribution, needed to know what he had to say. Meeting Mark could be a pivotal moment, a chance to gather information and perhaps devise a more fitting revenge. As I prepared for the encounter, my resolve hardened. This was not just about closure, it was about claiming the final word in a story that Lucy had rewritten without my consent. The cafe was bustling with the noise of the morning rush as I spotted Mark waiting at a table in the back. He looked up, his face etched with apprehension as I approached. I sat down, my expression unreadable, prepared for whatever lies he might spin. "Thanks for meeting me, David," Mark started, his voice low. "I know this must be uncomfortable." "Cut to the chase, Mark. What's so important that you had to see me face to face?" I demanded, not bothering to mask the contempt in my voice. He took a deep breath, then looked me directly in the eyes. "Lucy didn't cheat on you. It was all a setup." I frowned, processing his words. "What are you talking about?" "I saw you with her." "Yes, you saw us, but it was staged. Lucy was trying to push you to divorce her. She thought you were unhappy and wanted out, but she felt too guilty to leave you herself." The revelation hit me like a wave. "You're lying. Why should I believe any of this?" Mark pulled out his phone and showed me a series of messages between him and Lucy. The texts laid out their plan, confirming his story. "She roped me into this because she knew you wouldn't believe her if she just told you she wanted a divorce. She thought this would be easier." I sat back, my mind reeling from the deceit. It wasn't just a betrayal of love, it was a calculated manipulation of my emotions. Anger surged through me, but beneath that, a cold, calculating calm settled in. They had orchestrated my pain, and now they would both pay. "I see," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Thank you for telling me, Mark." He nodded, looking relieved. "I just thought you deserved the truth." As I left the cafe, a plan began to form. Lucy wanted freedom. I'd give it to her, but on terms that would ensure she regretted her deception forever. Over the next few weeks, I set my plan into motion. Using the evidence Mark had unwittingly provided, I went to my lawyer and had the divorce papers amended. The new terms were brutal, financially and socially crippling. Lucy would be left with nothing but a tarnished reputation. When she received the updated papers, Lucy called me, panic-stricken. "David, what is this? This isn't what we agreed on." "It's exactly what you deserve," I replied coldly. "You wanted a divorce, Lucy. You're getting one, along with a reminder of what betrayal costs. David, please, I didn't. I know everything, Lucy. Mark told me about your little plan. I could almost hear her heart breaking through the phone. This isn't fair, she whispered. Fair? Like staging an affair was fair. You chose this path, Lucy. Now you get to walk it. The divorce proceedings were swift and merciless. Lucy was left isolated, her friends distancing themselves after the details of her scheme came out. Mark, too, faced repercussions. His role in the deception cost him his job and many of his mutual friends with Lucy. Months later, I stood outside the courthouse, the final decree of divorce in my hand. I felt no joy, only a hollow victory. Lucy passed by me, her eyes dark with loss and regret. Our gazes met, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had once loved. But the moment passed, and she looked away, a stranger. We parted, forever linked by the memory of betrayal, our paths never to cross again. I had taken my revenge, not through violence or blatant cruelty, but through a calculated retribution that ensured neither Lucy nor Mark could ever forget the cost of their deceit. It was over, and I was free, but the taste of victory was as bitter as the coffee in that cafe where the truth had first come to light.